Good morning, good Erev Shabbos, good Erev Chanukah. Chanukah's on Sunday night. Mirz Hashem. Hope you all have had a great week. We're going to wrap up this week with learning Perek Yud Aleph, chapter 11 of Shabbos. I think this is the first time so far throughout Shas that we've went into a Masechta that was over 9 prakim. The longest one in Zeraim was Bikurim, or one of them. Sorry, Brachos was 9 prakim. I think this is the first Masechta that we've had that's over 10 prakim. Baruch Hashem. At least the chapters are kind of short in this Masechta. Some of the chapters in Zoram were kind of long, and so far we've had pretty mildly sized prakim with like 4, 5, 6 mishnayos. Not too bad. Okay, it's always Geshmak. Baruch Hashem. Okay, here we go. Today's shiur sponsored Lila Nishmas Aranachah B'Simcha Kohen Yeshua Mordechai Ben Shepsel Bracha Sar B'Shmuel Leib and B'Yam Moshe Ben Yosef. May the Neshamas all have an aliyah. And it's also Refuah Shlema Ad Sar Bas Leah Chana Pesel Bas Yenta Yisrael Ben Rachel Leah Rachel Bas Pesel Zelda and Avram Yisrael Ben Risha and Chaya Bas Doba Bela Refuah Hanefesh Refuah Sabuf the so shar Chal Yisrael, may they have speedy refuah bekarov. Okay, and as a schus for Victor Aaron, Begit the Masha, for Shefer Bracha Vatzlacha, for him and his ganze Mishpacha. Okay, here we go. Perek Yud Aleph Hazorek. This is continuing with the Malacha of Hotzah. It's funny how we have so many prakim in Shabbos talking about the Isser of Hotzah. It's probably the most relevant halachas, and we kind of negate the whole fact by putting up an eruv. So it's just interesting. Okay, Mishnah Aleph Hazorek or Rishus Hayachid, Rishus Harabim, Rishus Harabim, Rishus Hayachid Chayev. Plain and simple. Someone who throws an object from a private domain to a public domain, or from a public domain to a private domain, is chayiv for violating the malacha of hotzah. Okay, again, we learned the malachos from the binyan hamishkan, so hotzah is usher as an amalacha because in the midbar the Levium transferred the beams that formed the walls of the Mishkan from Rishus Harabim, from the public domain, to the public area that was around the Mishkan, to Rishus Hayachid, which is the wagons that were used to transport the beams from place to place. And from Rishus Hayachid, from the wagons, because that was like private property of the Levium, to Rishus Harabim, to the new site of the Mishkan, because every time they had to move the Mishkan, they had to disassemble and assemble the walls and the whole Mishkan in order to move it. So, although the Levium carried the beams and did not throw them, throwing is also prohibited as a tolada of Hotzah. Because when a person throws something from one domain to the other domain, he lifts the object off the ground. He had the akira, and it falls into the next place, which is the hanicha where it gets placed, and therefore, and those are the basic parts of a tzai. You have the akira and you have the anacha. Okay, let's go on. We're talking about a gullus over here. We're talking about the Mishkan over here. It's right before Chanukah. It's right by Parshas Vayeshev. It's all very cool. If someone throws an object from one private domain to another private domain, Rishus Harabim be'emsa, and a public domain is in between them. Let's say like you're on two sides of the street. You have on the right side of the street, you have a house. On the left side of the street, you have a house. And there's a street in between, and you throw something from your house to your neighbor's house across the street. Well, what's the din? Rabbi Akiva, so it's leaving the Rishus in that case, it leaves the Rishus Yachid. It goes into Rishus Yachid right the street, and it's crossing over the Rishus Harabim, which is the street. Rabbi Akiva Mechayev. Rabbi Akiva says he is Chayev because the object's passing through the Rishus Harabim, it's as viewed as if it was maniach there. They came to rest there. But the Chacham say he's the potter because it didn't, because Matthias is that the object did not land in the Rishus Harabim. It only landed in the Rishus Yachid. The guy was a good pitcher, and it is not viewed as if he did. I mean, I wonder like what would happen if you had like a pulley system, like you have a best friend across the street and you set up like a pulley system from one to the other. Can you use a pulley system on Shabbos? And I mean, I guess that would be the same thing, but consult your local Orthodox rabbi. Mishnah Beis, Ketzad. What's the case of the preceding Mishnah? Oh, here we go. What's the case of the preceding Mishnah, which a person transfers from one Rishus Hayachid to another one, but through a Rishus Harabim and his pater. Shtei gezus traos zu keneged zu Rishus Harabim. There are two balconies, each with the dimensions of Rishus Hayachid. They face each other on opposite sides of the public of the Rishus Harabim. Hamoshif hazorek mizula zu pater. Whether a person hands the item or throws it from one balcony to the other, he is pater. Now, achas. Both balconies were coming out of one upper story, meaning that they were both on the same side of the street. Like in a hotel, an apartment building, you have a neighbor the next door over to you, or two doors down. You're on the same side of the building, same side of the street. Can you pass things from one neighbor to the next neighbor? Now, it probably would have been easier just to go in the hallway and do it that way, but they did it on the balcony in this case. So, Hamoshit Chayev, one who hands the item from one balcony to the next is Chayev. Zori Potter, but the one who throws the item from the balcony to the other is Potter. Why? Shekar Chaisa Avodas Laviyim. This was the way that the Levim did their work in the Midbar. Shtei Agalas Zu Achar Zu B'Rishus Harabim. They set up two wagons, one behind the other, lengthwise in the public domain. Moshit and Hakrashim Mizuzu, and they handed the beams of the Mishkan from one wagon to the other along the length of the Rishus Harabim. They did not throw the beams from one wagon to the other. So we learn from there that the procedure that one who hands something from one Rishus Hayachid to another one is chayiv. But if someone throws it from the Rishus Hayachid, but if he throws it along, excuse me, we learn from the procedure of the Levium, the one who hands something from the Rishus Hayachid to another Rishus Hayachid along the length of the Rishus Harabim is chayiv. However, one who throws something along the length of the Rishus Harabim is pater, since there's no precedent in the work of the Levium to make this a malacha. Okay, we got that clear. Continuing with the Mishnah. Chulyas habor v'hasela shehein gavoin asavar v'rachman arba. The earth removed from a pit. You have a pit in the ground, like in today's parsha, you have the Yosef in the pit. You took the earth out from the pit and you piled it around the edges like a wall, and a rock 10 tefachim high and 4 tefachim wide are considered private domains. Shusayachits. Hanotam we have hanosin al gaban chayev. One who takes an item from one of them and places it in the Rishus Harabim, or one who takes an item from Rishus Harabim and places it into one of into the pit or to the rock is chayiv for hotshah. He's moving an item from Yachid to a Rabbim and vice versa. Pachas became part. However, if the dimensions of the earth around the pit, including the pit itself, or the dimensions of the rock are less than less than 10 tefachim high or 4 tefachim wide, then one who takes an item from them and places it in the public dome, and the Shus Harabim, or vice versa, is potter because he did not transfer an item between a Shus Yachid and a Shus Harabim. They were in the same caliber. Okay. Mishnah Gimel. Hazorek arba amos b'kosel l'mal l'miasar tvachim. Someone throws an item such as a sticky fig cake, 4 amos in the Shus Harabim, and it sticks to a wall in the Shus Harabim as well. Above 10, it sticks to the wall above 10 tvachim, higher than 10 tvachim from the ground. Kizori Pa'avir, it's as if he threw it in the air and it never landed, because the airspace above 10 tvachim is not considered part of the Shus Harabim. So he's therefore not violated the Isser of transferring 4 amos in the Shus Harabim. But if it's stuck to the wall within 10 tvachim on the ground, it's as if he threw it on the ground and it landed there. Hazorik ba'aretz arba amos chayv. The one who throws an object 4 amos onto the ground of the Rishus Harabim is chayiv. Zorak l'soch arba amos and his gagel chutz arba amos pater. Someone threw a item intending that it land within 4 amos of where he's standing, but it rolled beyond 4 amos and came to rest over there. He is pater. Why? Because he did not intend to throw it there to begin with. Chutz arba amos, nu'is gagel soch arba amos chayev. If he threw an item intending that it land beyond 4 amos and it landed there for a moment, but it then rolled back into his 4 amos, he's chayev because he intended to throw it far enough to be chayev and landed there for a moment. Mishnah Daled. Hazorik b'yam arba amos pater. Someone who throws an item 4 amos in the sea is pater because the sea is a karmeles. It's not considered to be a public domain. Im haya rakak. Let's see why. The karmeles is an area that's neither Shus Harabim or Shus Yachid, because it has no walls. It's not Shus Yachid, and it's not a public thoroughfare. So therefore, it's not Shus Harabim. It's considered to be under Torah law. It's considered to be a makom patur, and it's treated like Rishus Harabim only by the chachamim. Therefore, one who transfers an 4 amos in it is pater midoraisa. Even though the sea serves as a highway for boats and ships that travel through it, the Torah law does not recognize it as Rishus Harabim because the laws of Shabbos and the Malachos are derived from the Mishkan and the encampments, and that had no bearing. There was no involvement with the sea travel when building the Mishkan. Therefore, it's not considered to be Rishus Harabim. Fun fact. It was okay. So again. So Zorik b'yam arba amos pater. Someone throws an item 4 amos into the sea, he is pater. Im haya rakak mayim Rishus Harabim melechas bo. If there is a shallow pool of muddy water in the street and people using the public domain walk through it, you're walking through a puddle in the street. Hazorik l'socha arba amos chayiv. If someone throws an item 4 amos in it into the muddy water, he is chayiv because the pool is considered to be part of the Shus Harabim. The kama hu rakak mayim. How shallow must such a pool be to be deemed part of the Rishus Harabim? Pachas me'asar tefachim, less than 10 tefachim deep. As long as the pool is less than 10 tefachim deep, and people using the Rishus Harabim walk through it, it's considered part of the Rishus Harabim. Rakak mayim Rishus Harabim halechas bo. If there's a shallow pool of muddy water in the street and people using the Rishus Harabim walk through it, even if there are more than 4 amos to cross through, and people sometimes avoid it, hazorek b'sochu arba amos chayv. One who throws an item 4 amos in it is liable, because it's still considered part of the Rishus Harabim. Mishnah Hey, hazorek min hayam liyabasha, or min hayabasha liyam. If someone throws an item from the sea to the land, or from the land to the sea, or from the sea to a boat, or from the boat to the sea, or from one boat to another boat over the water. Pater, he is pater, because the sea is a karmeles. It's pater in the first case because even the land is a Rishus Harabim. Because even if the land is Rishus Harabim, there's no liability for sale between a karmeles and Rishus Harabim. He's pater for the second case because even if the boat is Rishus Hayachid, there's no liability for transferring between a karmeles and a Rishus Hayachid. Therefore, he's pater in the last case because even if both boats are Rishus Hayachids, there's no liability for transferring over a karmeles from one Rishus Hayachid to another Rishus Hayachid. It's only an issue only a problem with the with Rishus Harabim. Okay. Safinos kashuro zu bezu metal tilin mizu lezu. If 2 boats that belong to different people are tied together with a gap less than 4 tefachim between them, we may transfer items from one boat to the other, provided that an eruv was made. In Einan Kashiras, however, if they are not tied together, even though they are close together with less than 4 tefachim between them, we may not transfer items from one to the other, because the Chachamim were concerned that they might drift apart, and thereby invalidating the Eruv Chatzeris between them. And the last Mishnah for today, Hazorek, V'niskar l'achas yatzasab miyado. If someone throws an item from one rishus to another rishus, and then he remembers that Shabbos after the item leaves his hand, but before it lands, kalta acher, kalta kelev oshenesifa, or he throws an item from one rishus to another, and someone intercepts it, or a dog grabs it in midair, or it burns up in the air before it lands, not the dog, but the object. Pater, in all these cases, he is pater from chatas, because in the first case, he's exempt because only the beginning of the act was done in the state of Shogeg, but not the end, when he knew it was Shabbos. And in the other cases, he's exempt because he did not finish the malacha. If someone forgot that it was Shabbos and threw an item to inflict a wound, whether upon a person or upon an animal, and he remembered it was Shabbos before the wound was inflicted, pater, he's also pater because only the beginning of his fact, only the beginning of the act was done in a state of Shogeg, but not the end of it. And therefore he's pater. Zeha Cloud, this is the rule. Kol chayvi chatos ena chiyavin ad shetei tchilasim v'sovim shagago. All of those who are liable to bring a korban chatos do not become liable unless both the beginning and the end of their maisa occur when they are in a state of shogeg. All everything has to be b'shogeg. Tchilas and shagaga usof and zadon, if the beginning of the act occurs when they are shogeg, you know, unintentionally, but the end of the act occurs when they are, it's deliberate, it's intentional. I mean, that's when they remember that it's Shabbos. Tchilas and Zada is so fun Shagaga, or if the beginning of the act occurs when they are in a state of intentional, but the end of the act occurs when they are Shogeg, Turin, they are both Pater from Korachatis ad Shitehei Tchilas and V'sof and Shagaga. They are not chayiv unless both the beginning and the end of the act occur when they are in a state of shogeg. Um, so this rule is repeated in order to teach that only the beginning and end of the deed must be done in a state of shogeg, but not the middle. Therefore, one threw an object 6 amos and remembered it was Shabbos after it traveled 2 amos, but forgot again before it traveled the last 2 amos. He's chayiv because the beginning and the end of the deed were both done in a state of shagaga. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock at Perek. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Stay warm and safe.